So here we are, Blade of the Immortal, and I've been putting this off for quite a little while. I've had it on my shelf back there, and I just keep saying I'm going to get to it. Well, here we are. I got to it, or at the very least, I got to the first arc in the manga, and I read the entire arc, which is simply titled the Introduction Arc, or at least as far as I can tell, because that's what the fan-made wiki page says, which, by the way, absolutely terrible name for an arc. Don't ever name the first arc that. It was just bad. I mean, granted, it introduces the characters, the world, the themes, and the plots, and all that stuff, but still, it's a bad name. Before we get started here, I do want to say mild spoilers for Blade of the Immortal. I mean, I won't be talking about anything necessarily specific, but I will kind of discuss in broad strokes, and I will very vague spoilers for the first arc of this. So if you want to know absolutely nothing, maybe don't watch this, but you should be fine. First things first, let's get this out of the way. Right off the bat, this manga is essentially the anti-vagabond. Like, if that manga is about beauty and reflection and determination and dedication and discipline, stuff like that, this one's not. This one's just about, like, the struggle of life in general. And it's about life so far as it sucks, it's hard, it's ugly, and also maybe your morals aren't worth shit. Take, for example, that the main character in our story is a man who is literally immortal because he has been infected with worms that kind of repair him as he gets damaged and make him so that he cannot die. The irony of that being that this is a man who just kind of wants to die. So the one thing that he wants, he can't have because he's been infected with these worms that just won't allow it. Then we have Rin, our main female character, who kind of joins up with him. She's going to provide the main driving force for the manga because she is on a path for revenge, and he is going to help her in that path. And she's on a path of revenge because this evil group of samurais killed her father. But then going back to those kind of moral questions that I was hinting at, the main antagonist himself killed her father because her father kicked his father out of a dojo that was a school for samurai because he used a foreign weapon in a battle, which was a violation of the sacred rules of that particular fighting style, even though he used that weapon in order to defend the school and everything like that. On top of that, he was like the most talented student in the entire school. So he was the best fighter, and he was fighting to defend the school. So he kind of used any means at his disposal to best protect the school. But in doing so, he used the wrong weapon, so he had to be thrown out. But then, in order to get revenge for her father's death, Rin will hire Manji, who basically not only breaks every possible conceivable weapon rule in the book, he really has no sense of what propriety in battle even would be. He kind of breaks every conceivable rule, I guess is what I'm saying. Rin herself even uses throwing daggers, which would be unsanctioned in her father's dojo, which our antagonist is very quick to point out to her. Then, at a certain point in the story, our main characters kill one of those evil samurai that we're hunting, and he happens to have left the samurai in order to raise his son, and then the son walks in on them killing the dad. So now they've created this whole nother cycle of revenge with this boy now vowing to kill Manji. And we start a whole new revenge cycle right then and there, having a whole nother conversation around that and the morality of that. And is this going to just perpetually renew itself over and over and over again? Although, granted, they do actually stop that cycle by faking Manji's death and getting the kid to not vow for revenge. But that doesn't change the fact that it very much could have just kept that cyclical cycle of revenge, because that made sense, but it kind of keeps that cycle going. The cyclical cycle. That's a new thing. And that's not to say that either of our main characters are wrong in doing what they're doing, or Rin is wrong in having her journey or path of revenge here, because the manga is more than happy to point out to us time and time again that the group of evil samurai that we are chasing is infinitely worse than anything our two main characters could be doing right now, or have done as far as I can tell. It's only to point out that the moral lines of right and wrong in this particular manga are not clearly drawn. It is not black and white. If anything, it's very muddy and it's mostly gray. And that's the point. It's not easy for our main characters in this story morally. It's going to test their idea of what morals are as they go through it. At least Rin is. She struggles every step along the way. Maybe not so much Manji. He doesn't kind of seem to care about anything for the most part. At least not as far as where I'm at in the story. So like I said, the moral lines are a little blurry and everything seems a little bit messy in this. But if you compare it to other manga, everything in this seems to be just a little bit messier. And now, to be fair, I'm not the most well-read person when it comes to manga. I'm still actually relatively new to this entire genre. But like I said, everything just seems to be a little bit messier in this. And that tracks not only from the morals, but it tracks all the way down to the art itself. The art seems to just be a little bit messier than other styles. It's a little bit scratchy, a little bit sketchy, not quite as clean. That's not to say that it's bad, because it's anything but bad. There are some shots and some panels in this that are absolutely stunning to look at. But then, even the action is a little messy. It doesn't track quite as well from panel to panel as some other manga, like Dragon Ball Z or something like that, just super clean as to how the action tracks, and you never lose track of anything that's happening. This just isn't that clean. Like I said, even the flow of action from panel to panel just is a little bit messier than other mangas. There's also like a slight lack of inherent beauty in the art itself due to the fact that it's a little bit messier. But then that also kind of means that there's like this real distinct sense of style, maybe even an enhanced sense of style. It's kind of like the punk rock version of Vagabond. And then in our story, we have our main character who is essentially immortal. In other words, he cannot die. But the author still finds a way to maintain the tension in the story and kind of make you still be able to feel the stakes as we move through it. It also helps that he very quickly lets you know that he's not actually immortal. There are actually a couple of different ways that he can die. So our main character isn't actually unkillable, he's just almost unkillable. And I was genuinely worried about the concept of an immortal main character kind of robbing the story of a certain amount of weight and a certain amount of tension. I'm very happy to say it does not do that. I also will say I wasn't 100% sold from page one. It took a few minutes for me to kind of get into it and get acclimated and get invested. Like, I don't know if I'm as particularly as invested in this particular manga as I have been in some of the other ones that I've read, but I've also barely just begun, barely just scratched the surface. So I'm going to kind of withhold that kind of a judgment until I'm further into it, because boy, I got a long way to go for it to really grab me and hook me and pull me in. And as far as an introduction is concerned, this was very good. I'm hooked, I'm in, and I'm really ready and eager to read more to see where it goes and see how this plays out. Also, stories that push really morally gray situations and stories and really question what is right and what is wrong and who is right and who is wrong really kind of have an extra added oomph for me. They really pique my interest and I get really invested in them. So I feel like there is potential for me to be like really into this by the further we get into it, if that makes any sense. Although I will say I'm going to give this one, at least the introduction arc, probably like a 7.5 out of 10. It was good, maybe not like that great, but also I feel like it really could be moving forward. So do with that what you will. Anyway, as always, everybody, the link for my Patreon's in the description below. The link for my Discord's in the description below. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.